Begin, and I just want to say, if you see anything weird in the background, this is just because I'm recording in my room. It had been a long day from shunting, and Thomas was returning home to Natfordshires. I say, little Thomas, if you're going to shunt, and please do it softly, Gordon and Thunder heard in his voice. Hey, it's not my fault. The coaches were being rowdy, Thomas replied. Enough, you two. You both work equally hard, and that's what matters, Edward says, trying to dissolve the argument. Anyway, we have work to do tomorrow, and we better get some sleep. We need to be extra careful in the storm aftermath tomorrow. There's going to be a storm, Thomas questions. Yeah. Yes, now let's get some shut-eye. Hey. Yes, Edward's quite right. Hey, we big engines need to get to sleep. Now, good night. Edward was right. Hey, there was a big bridge over the river Tid near Tidmouth. The storm really struck here. The track was really destroyed. Both support beams on the south side have been and collapsed, and the middle part had snapped in two. But no one knew about this. The engines woke up next morning and ready for today's work. It turns out that Gordon and safety valve had jammed, so he couldn't go on. And Henry, as usual, he was sick. With only 2 engines available, there were fewer trains, and the engines had to work twice as hard. Thomas had Edward's coaches ready, and when he was done, he got the goods train Henry was meant to take, but he was going to take it since he was inactive. Thomas was excited. He had never pulled a train before. Be careful now, Thomas, Edward said. You don't want them to push you off the rails. I know what I'm doing, Edward. I've pushed these in the yard. I know, but they're different in the main line. They'll push you off the rails if you're not careful. And remember that storm I told you about yesterday? The line may be torn up. What if you're not able to stop in time? I'll be fine, Edward. Just stop worrying about me and worry about your own train. Okay. But don't say I didn't warn you. Thomas thundered down on the main line, very excited, but he didn't see what was ahead of him. When Thomas opened his eye, he saw what had happened behind him. As Edward said, and the line had been torn up, and the bridge was the biggest victim of all. He hadn't been too aware of this, and was too excited to care. Oh, what a silly engine I am, Thomas said sadly. Now, we'll have to close down because now Edward is the only one available. Edward was at Wellsworth when he heard about the incident. Alarms rang, and he was told to leave behind his coaches and go fetch Jerome to lift Thomas out of the river. Edward brought the breakdown train into the scene. Hey, little Thomas. Who told you about the track not being safe? You did. I'm sorry, Edward. I should have listened to you. Well, we all make mistakes sometimes. Now, let's get you out. Thomas was lifted out of the river, and then his trucks were lifted out. That night at Natfordshire, Gordon gave Thomas no end of grief. Little Thomas, did you really think that you could pull trucks along a damaged piece of line and still remain in one piece? Gordon, you can't be talking, Edward said. And after all, didn't your safety valve burst? That's why we had to step in for you.